Good afternoon. This is Debbie Q, and you're listening to The Right Shoe. I still don't know what to do about my intro, so I don't know. It's just going to have to be my taped intro for a while. I haven't, let's see, I don't want to go into everything. I haven't upgraded everything the way I wanted to yet. After the holidays, I really will get more into the technical side. Then my computer was acting up. My son fixed it. The genius that he is. He really is good with computers. And this is Debbie Q. The Right Shoe is about all things strange and unusual, especially in reference to a death. Now, these cases tonight, they're about 2 missing children. Unfortunately, because so much time has passed. I hate to say this because for any reason that this could be true, I wish it would be true. I wish that they were still alive. And in the case of those, there's few cases for a long time. Jamie Dugar, I think her name was, she was gone for like 18 years. She came back alive. If this were to happen, oh my gosh, that would be fantastic. But I don't know. I think that probably they're both gone. As a mother researching these cases, the one is just a punch to the gut. Let's get in. First, the business side, as always. The Right Shoe is a podcast. I am the sole creator, producer. I run the whole show. I am far from technically inclined, so that is why when I get any updates, it takes me forever to include them. I still can't find a beginning bumper. I don't know. It's tough. I do like the original one. And, even with my right shoe that my daughter drew, that was my daughter's right shoe. I could never change that. I did get, it's called Podcast Name H. So Podcast Name here on Instagram. They are really good if you want to get something something drawn up for you, because he really took what I said and did it exactly how I wanted it. So that was awesome. And the price was insanely wonderful. Also, as always, the shout out to, these are just my favorite podcasts, Murder at Bedtime with Lyndon. It's so good. He's coming out with some new ones this week. It's the week of December 7th. Also, Grizzly_Books, as always. I have a shout out to a couple others that really don't need my help, but they're so excellent. They're comedy ones, which I normally don't listen to. I am so true crime. This one is, I am a huge fan of The Office. They have one called Office Ladies. It's Angela and Pam from The Office. I am so enamored right now. I think after these kid researches, I was so out of my mind. I just needed comic relief, and all week I've had nothing but this podcast on. I usually only listen to true crime, but I couldn't even do that right now. It was hard. It really was. It really was difficult. I'm not just saying that. And please, in the one case, the Mark Heimbaugh case, there is something that is it could be considered a trigger. It is so horrific. I did have nightmares the last couple of days. I'm not kidding. So just be forewarned that there are things in this episode, particularly with the Mark Heimbaugh case, that are extremely disturbing. I mean, extremely. Please, if you are triggered by especially things done to children, please do not listen to the Mark Heimbaugh. I keep saying Heimbaugh, but it's pronounced Heimbaugh case, because, there's a special place in hell anybody who could do this to a child. Honestly. If this is what this guy truly did, I hope he burns for eternity. Let's put it that way. So, The Right Shoe is a podcast. If you're listening on Apple, please review, because these reviews, they help. Regardless, thanks to all of the listeners, because anybody who's listening and continues to listen, you don't even know how much I appreciate it. And the feedback's everything. It's just been wonderful. Instagram, I'm ShopaholicsDeb44. At some point, I should change it to The Right Shoe. But right now, it's ShopaholicsDeb44. And the response of that has been wonderful. In fact, tonight, I had 3 cases. It was Tracy Bird, Mark Heimbaugh, and Jason Sweeney. All 3 were listeners suggested. But the one Jason Sweeney, because his case was a bit different because he was found pretty much right away. He was never missing. He was pretty much, what happened to him was absolutely tragic, but there is a lot more involved in his story. So I think I'm going to save him for another time. On Instagram, I do have a shortened version of his story. If you want to ever go, Shopaholic Deb 44 on Instagram. The Right Shoe monikers all over the place. The Jason Sweeney story is on that. And that's another one that blew my mind. But I did not realize when I was putting this together, I thought, it just doesn't make sense because it didn't really fit with the other two stories. And then when I traced Tracy Byrd by herself, there is such little information about her that it was so short. I decided to add Mark Heimbaugh, and his case I could probably do by itself, but I kind of wanted to do it. And after I read it, I said, I'm going to do this because his mother is still actively looking for him. She seems like the sweetest lady on the planet. I went onto a social media page that she was on, and she wrote something to the effect that I've had heartbreak and tears in my life. I'm paraphrasing, but I pay it forward and life is still good. And the fact, it's inspiring that she could go through what she's been through and still have such a positive outlook. Okay, I'm going to do these cases and get through them as best I can because it's really difficult. I am having a lot of trouble with the Mark Heimbaugh one. Let's start with Tracy Byrd. Tracy Byrd, now there's a bit of confusion here. Somebody had wrote to me that I knew for many years in the past. I haven't seen them in a while. One of the sisters had wrote about Tracy Byrd, and she had said that she lived around the corner from us. Now, I lived in Morrell Park when I was young, and I was like, what? Like, I had never known that this happened to Tracy. And not only that, when I looked in this story, there was just a bit of confusion, but I'll get to that in a minute. The story that I found is truly nuts. I mean, I am really stunned about how much, I guess it does happen a lot in every neighborhood. And just when you're little, I always thought that Tina Severance, the one that I had done, that my second podcast about Tina Severance, who was my sister's friend's twin. And I thought that was the only person I'd ever known that had this happen to. You just don't realize that it doesn't matter where you live. This kind of stuff is pretty constant. It really is disappointing, I will say. You want to think that you lived in utopia, That's how I feel about when I was younger. We just had a really good neighborhood. Back then, the moms stayed home, the dads worked for the most part. And it was just like, like you think about when you think of those Norman Rockwell posters. It was very old school looking. I can't even think of. It was just, you went out, your mom called you for dinner, or you knew to come home before dark, I knew to be at that dinner table at 4:30, or my dad kicking my ass. And that's how it was. And then at bedtime, same thing. Like, we knew to be home at dark. It was like this little world, this little bubble. This bubble, I guess, didn't really exist. There was a girl named Tracy Byrd, and now this is where I'm confused. Now, she was supposed to have lived around the corner from us, and we went to John Hancock Elementary School, which is actually like a very well-regarded demonstration school, they called it. It was an elementary school. It went 1 through 5. Ours was 1 through 5, 6 through 8, and then 9 through 12. So this was right up the street from us. Now, Tracy Byrd was supposed to have went and been in the same class as my friend. Now, the picture, and I will have pictures up, for both cases, missing person cases still. And even though it was quite a while ago, so you never know. Even closure for this family would be a relief or would give them some sense of peace at this point. Tracy Byrd was, I do remember that her face is so familiar. But yet when I was really researching this case, the confusing part was when she went missing, she was living in Bensalem, but it did say that her mother was divorced. Her mother being Jean Byrd. She was living in Bensalem at this time. Yeah, Jean Louise Byrd. She lived in Bensalem. They all lived in Bensalem. The mom and the daughter and her son, Frank. It said Byrd had been separated from her husband, and she had a boyfriend named Paul Greenwald. Now, the confusing part is that when I was researching it, there was a woman who's actively in this. Michelle Stein was Jean Byrd's friend. And she said she had known Jean Byrd since they lived in the Bensalem apartment complex in 1972. So that didn't make sense to me. If they lived in that complex in 1972, how would Tracy, unless Tracy lived with her father possibly in the Philadelphia house, somehow she was, I can't imagine my friend being wrong that Tracy Byrd lived around the corner from us, knowing the story, knowing that would happen, and yet it's just that timeline that's a little screwed up. Let's start from the beginning here. Tracy Byrd was born on July 7th, 1968. She went missing on March 7th, 1983. She was only 14 years old. She was 5 foot to 5'4" and weighed between 70 and 105 pounds. What happened was she had, now to get like a little backstory, she had gotten suspended from school for an unknown reason, but a reason that she wouldn't tell her mom about. And her mom and her were very close. It was said that after the divorce, they were very tight. But I imagine that, like, if you get suspended for something like, say, fighting or saying something nasty to your teacher, you can kind of buffer that and say, well, I didn't do that. She's kind of lying. But if you get suspended for something like cutting class, which she seemed to do kind of frequently, from what I read, you can't really lie about that. It is what it is. You either cut class or you didn't. She never told anyone that she was suspended. Her family members did not know. So she was supposed to go to school one day. She was 14. She was in Bensalem High School. She asked some people to cut with her, but nobody would cut with her. That was the last time she was seen, was walking away in the rain from Bensalem High School, March 7th, 1983. Who drove her to school was Paul Greenwald. Frank, the son of Jean Byrd, Tracy's mother, said that he came home in 30 minutes from dropping her off. What happened after this, I don't know, because as soon as I read this, I was, even before knowing what happened afterward to the mother, which is coming next, I still immediately thought that Paul Greenwald did something, her mother's boyfriend. And the only reason I thought that is because, seriously, if you read true crime after true crime and you really start getting into it, this is why police automatically just put the spotlight on family members, because 9 times out of 10, it is somebody close to them. Frighteningly, but true. It's just the way it goes. It happens. So that is disturbing, but I really thought Paul Greenwald did it. And he was Jean's boyfriend. And all the people that knew Jean Byrd said she was always a very happy woman. They'd never known her to complain. In fact, her friend Michelle Stein saw her. She said she was dressed up in good spirits, was walking to her car, and she was supposed to go out with them the next night. And that's why they knew something happened, because Jean never showed up. Jean Byrd was last seen at 4 a.m. October 7th in the parking lot of Brookside Square Apartments near Park Avenue. She was unemployed and separated from her husband and had been visiting her son, Frank. She was reported missing the next day by a friend, Michelle Stein of Bensalem, after Byrd failed to join Stein and other friends in a weekend of planned activities. It's not like her to do that. And this is from a very old newspaper. Actually, October 21st, 1983 was when this actual article came out. I guess it wasn't of much shock when several days later, on October 18th, Jean Bird, who in previous times her boyfriend, Paul Greenwald, who apparently was, he seems like he had a lot of issues. He held her at knife point, and they were in like some sort of car chase in Trenton or to Trenton. And so he was a known instigator of problems. And then they found her body in Blackbird State Forest, Newcastle County, Delaware. Heavy duct tape on her face and mouth. The cause of death was asphyxiation. So she died not being able to breathe, which, having asthma, I'll tell you right now, that has got to be the most excruciating death. I'm sure no death is fun at the hands of another, but that is... so she died from him wrapping her in duct tape and throwing her body into the forest. They did get Paul Greenwald to confess to this crime. He did say that he killed Jean Bird and that he was going to plead to manslaughter the next day, although the district attorney said that he was going to charge him with a heavier crime and see if he could get him on that. But this was never to work because Mr. Greenwald took an overdose of medication and died in the jail cell the night before he was going to be indicted. So, I mean, that just shows the coward that he was all the way around. He never confessed to doing anything to Tracy, but I'm just very suspicious even more now. Like, maybe he did kill Tracy. You know, I was reading up on suicide just in Wikipedia, like a brief research about it. And they said most people kill themselves in jail because they're afraid of retaliation by inmates, you know, other inmates, their guilt over the crimes they've done, or they just don't want to spend life in prison, obviously. Could have been that, could have been all three, or maybe he did feel guilty because he was the one who killed Tracy as well as the mother. He definitely killed Jean. Flash forward, now Bensalem, it is so strange. This happened in 1983. Now they said to call with any important information. Still, to this day, you know, almost 40 years ago, 37 years. They will not give out any information. They'll take information. I did call and they won't. It's still an active case, which blew my mind. Now, what happened was there was a body that was found, a 6-month pregnant unknown female found. It was called Publicker Industries. It was some kind of distillery on State Road in Bucks County. They really thought it was Tracy this whole time. And the cops kept saying it's not Paul Greenwald. It's this Bensalem County man. And we want him to, quote, get stomach cancer, worrying about the day that we have enough evidence to charge him with this crime. For whatever reason, they had stuff on this guy that they thought he was the killer of Tracy. But years went by, and though they did do a DNA test, and it just came back recently, it was not Tracy. So her body has never been found. On the RightShoePodcast.com, I will put up a missing poster of Tracy Bird and the number that you can call if you have any information about Tracy Bird. Again, it happened in 1983, March 7th. She was 5'5". She had pierced ears, blue eyes. She was a tiny thing. She said she was pregnant. Whether or not she was, nobody knows. She was never found. And they really didn't have anything except a picture of her tooth from when she went to the dentist. But now with familial DNA, and especially they have the mother's DNA, and mitochondrial DNA is passed from mother to child. Now they can do the mitochondrial DNA matches. So they would, especially having the mother's DNA, be able to figure out if it was Tracy. But so far, nothing. So her case is open, and I did I still think it was that Paul Greenwald. That is my honest opinion. I just can't imagine who else it would be. Well, it's just a little strange that in one family, the mother's dead, the daughter was missing, the guy kills himself in jail. Who else could it be? It's just very odd. So that was the first case. There's really nothing else I can say about it because that is all the information. I read newspapers. Facebook is actually really good with the Charlie Project. They very much are heavily into researching missing children, and they have like the age progression photos. They ask for a $3 donation because, it keeps them going. That gave me the most information. Even the newspapers, I think the police were so intent on this one guy that they really wouldn't, even now, they just will not put out any information. So I don't know. I guess they still want it solved. So any information, go to therightshoepodcast.com. That was Tracy Byrd. The next case, the Mark Heimbach case, was brought to me by my friend Anthony. He had told it to me before, and then a couple days ago, he had brought it up again, and I ran and I did look that up right away. This case, because I think with Tracy Byrd, I'm not sure the family member is still looking for her, but with the Mark Heimbach case, his mother is still actively looking for him, and she seems like the sweetest woman in the world. There's a couple of videos on YouTube, Maureen Heimbach, if you want to look up her name, and Mark Heimbach, that really go much more deeply into the story than I can. It's really recommended. Just if anyone really has any information, it would be really amazing to give this woman the closure that she needs. She still lives in the same house. She lives in Delhaven. If you look at a map, you'll see like Wildwood, New Jersey, Cape May, and right across there's Delhaven. It's down the shore. It's Cape May, Middleton Township, New Jersey. Mark Heimbach was born March 23rd, 1980. He was 11 years old. He's white male, red hair, blue eyes, and at the time he was 4 foot 6 inches and weighed 85 pounds. Missing from Delhaven, New Jersey. They have an age progression photo, which I will put on therightshoepodcast.com. And if you have any information, please call 1-800-843-5678. That's 1-800-THE-LOST. He would be 40 years old now. He was last seen at 4 p.m. They did find his left shoe 75 yards from his home. No other trace has been found. He was last seen wearing a blue sweatshirt, a gray jacket, gray pants, and sneakers. And again, they did find his left shoe. He has freckles. Now, the reason they found his left shoe, which is really horrifying, this story is so chilling. I have to get the link to this because you have to hear the investigator tell this story. I will put the link on therightshoe.com. I have to. The investigator, when they were searching for Mark, and this truly chilled me to the bone, they did an extensive search. She said the amount of people that came out was truly amazing. And, I'm sure it really, that part, while you're in the worst point of your life, the most horrific, I don't even know how you get through it, part of your life, there was people looking, and what this one guy said, the way that the pattern, something bad had happened, they knew. What had happened was there was a marsh fire. I looked up marsh fire, and it said it's usually set by, this one particular online says, fires get rid of the older dead plant life and the ash fertilizes the soils. The plants that come back tend to hold the marsh in place and resist the erosion that's causes issues. So this marsh fire had been started, but I think it got out of control. Everyone in the town was kind of running to see it. And, there's beach areas where they had lived. There was like beachy areas and that kind of ground where you can see footprints, especially like, did you ever run in wet sand? That seemed to be what surrounded this little area that they lived in. When they were searching for Mark, one of the investigators said that the way they could see the pattern of the shoes and the feet was that actually the kid was running, and he was probably running away from somebody so fast that his shoe fell off. That's why they found his left shoe. They could see the pattern. No shoe, shoe, no shoe, shoe. So this kid was running, and that scared the hell out of me. And I kept thinking of this poor kid running from someone. And I believe that to be true, because they said they knew when they saw that it was not good. And plus they couldn't find the kid. So what had happened, it was a very normal day. Mrs. Heimbaugh said that her son was watching TV and nothing was going on, but then this marsh fire started and everyone wanted to go see it. And she called him her little Curious George. It just breaks, So she calls him her little Curious George, and he ran out to, he wanted to see the marsh fire. But a neighbor across the street asked for Mrs. Heimbaugh's help in getting her to a body shop to get her car. Now, Mrs. Heimbaugh got very upset when she was telling the story, because she said what normally took 5 minutes, it was a little 5-minute run to the body shop, ended up taking a half hour due to they had to divert the traffic. So there was a roadblock. So all the traffic was diverted. And that's why it took her so long. She kept, I'm sure you go through that in your head a billion times. If I didn't have to, if it wasn't for the roadblock, if it wasn't for the fact that the marsh fire, he would have still been watching TV. Gosh, you just want to hug the woman and say, stuff always comes up like it's not your fault and it's not anybody's fault. It just, that part just happened. Whose fault it is, whatever happened after. There was a lot of witnesses that had seen Mark, and they saw him with a little girl with blonde hair who was never identified. They do have her picture. I will try to get all these pictures up. Let me write that down. But because the traffic had been diverted, it is possible that it was just, somebody that maybe the neighbors didn't know, because the traffic was diverted. Maybe the cars had stopped and somebody was like, a little girl had also wanted to watch the marsh fire. Remember, even in 1991, it was still to the point where kids kind of ran and did what they had to until your mom called you in. And this seemed like a very nice community. Everyone saw each other, and they all knew Mark. They had seen him at the brush fire, but all of a sudden he was gone. The little girl with the blonde hair, they never identified her. So what happened is they, after they found the footprints and all this stuff, they did the event. They really did an extensive search. They said it was just, very extensive. Now, Mrs. Heimbaugh said that she will not move outside of that house, because to this day, she's afraid that that's the only house he knows. I had nightmares the last 4 nights, and this should not happen. I hate the fact that this happened. A mother should never lose her child. It really sucks. And what came next is why it is very upsetting to even think about. But, okay, when my friend Anthony was talking about, his dad had went on this grand jury, because one of the persons of interest of all the names, but the guy's name is Thomas Buttcabbage, and he seems a total scumbag. I mean, I have to be blunt. He's a pedophile, and he is in jail. In 2017, he was sentenced to 36 or 37 years for, child pornography, doing things to children, all pedophile situations. And he is in jail. So I hope, whoever's in there, it just gets to him. Nothing would please me more. But there was a guy. Oh, so he also, because there was a rash of missing children around this time, the same time that Mark was missing, they were wondering if Thomas was a serial killer. So they actually had a grand jury, and Anthony's dad was a part of this grand jury. They went, and now I was asking Homicide, I said, why do they have grand juries? Like, what's the difference and all that? I didn't understand. He said, now grand juries are different than regular juries. They're still regular people that get called, but it's usually, well, first of all, it's not to determine a verdict. It's to determine if they're going to indict somebody with something, with a charge. In this instance, they said it, and usually prosecutors, DAs, they get more of a yes answer when they bring something to a grand jury rather than a judge. I think it's a little easier for them to get the green light for a specific case. And they wanted to get this guy, Thomas Buttcabbage. They wanted to get him. And he said that there just wasn't enough evidence. So they said no, because they didn't have enough information. There really wasn't anything concrete that they could say he was the serial killer. He did do things, but especially in the instance of Mark, they only have the word of this one guy. I do not know why this guy would make this up, because this is horrific. Okay, this guy, Daniel Cole, had been a prostitute years ago, and Thomas Buttcabbage was a repeat customer. One day, for some reason, it was on Valentine's Day of 1993. He said that Thomas Buttcabbage showed him a video that haunts him for the rest of his life. He said that there was a young boy shackled, handcuffed, and ball gagged, being assaulted by Mr. Buttcabbage. And he said the fear in that kid's eyes, he was scared to death. And he said, is that the kid that's missing, that Mark Heimball? He said, well, yeah. And he said, well, what happened? What happened? What'd you do after that? And he said, well, I did what I did with the 5 or 6 other kids. I got rid of them. So casually. And this guy, Daniel Cole, swears to this. I can't imagine why Daniel Cole would make that up. But yet, in jail, when he was arrested in 2017, he said he had nothing to do with Mark Heimball's disappearance. So, who knows? It sounds like it could be him, but I don't know, maybe, I don't know. It sucks. It really does make me insane. They never found him. She's still out there. She's still, actively looking for him. With that case, I would definitely go to bat and say, look, if you see anything, remember, there is a phone number. It's 1-800-THE-LOST. And they did how they do age progressions, and they actually get like your DNA, the DNA of your family, and they don't just, back in the day, they didn't have computer stuff like this, and they would just age progress it by making the photo older. Now they really take in your DNA, and they'll ask you, they ask the family for certain things, and they really put a lot into these age progression photos. So it really does kind of look like the person should look as they age. So I'm hoping that one day Mrs. Heimball gets closure for this case. Those were the 2 cases. I got through them. I did that, especially the Mark Heimball case. I did the Tracy Byrd case because it was as a case itself, it is fascinating. It's a shame. I don't know. I don't hear as much of their family, but I'm sure there's family members out there that would like to hear what happened. And with the Mark Heimball case, again, she is actively still looking for some sort of peace to resolve that, what happened to her son. those are the cases. Again, thank you for all your support. If there's any cases you want, just therightshoepodcast.com or ShopaholicDeb44. There's a lot of cases. Somebody had asked me to do the Diane Schuler case. Diane Schuler was in the 2009 Taconic State Parkway crash. It's a very famous case, and it's been done a lot, but it is absolutely a case that makes you wonder. So I just might do that case because I do know a lot about it. It is Christmas time. Not that that's a happy Christmas story, but so that I can, relax a little during Christmas without stopping the Right Show. I feel like that I know enough about the case where I could literally, I have a distinct opinion on what happened. I really do. So I would actually like to go through that case. I might do that case next, unless something else comes up. I did want to do the Philip Kramer case. Philip Taylor Kramer. He was from Iron Butterfly, and that case is fascinating. So there's a lot of cases rolling around. Again, maybe I'll do the Diane Schuler case because it was requested. If you have any requests, ShopaholicDeb44 or therightshoepodcast.com. Please get in touch with me. Let me know any questions. And as always, I'm still going to do it for one more month. I did not forget anybody who requested to be put in. Originally, it was going to be a contest because I was going to just give away one book, the poetry book, through Carolyn Kingian's The Big Bang Makes a Sound. It's a book of poetry. It is so good. There was people that really were interested, so she sent me several books. So I think I'm just gonna give them to people who wants them, since I have them. Send me a little DM, ShopaholicDeb44, before The Big Bang Makes a Sound. Excellent. 5-star reviews. I mean, it really is a great poetry book. Just let me know, and I'll just send you one out. This is Debbie Q, and you're listening to The Right Show.